Welcome back to this random table where I repair stuff. Today, on the BSS Stuff with the channel, we have this Hoffman Easy Vision TV. I think it's from the early 50s. I can't find any exact information on when this was actually produced, but I think it's from the early 50s. Definitely has that style. It has all the knobs that are on off volume, and I think that's tone in the middle, and then tuning and fine tuning over there. There's one of the infinitely spinning tuners. So that's about it for the front. Let's go on to the back and see what that looks like. This is the back. You can see it actually comes with the metal back. Usually these are missing. There's quite a lot of rust on this one, but the chassis doesn't seem that rusty, so that's good. So we'll take this off. You can see we've got our little chart here describing some of this stuff. So our antenna hookups and then antenna tuning. So I wonder if they have like an extra little capacitor there to match the antenna resonance. There are all kinds of controls down here, which is pretty common of these older style TVs. That are a lot more controls than the later ones. Like my 49 Philco has like 3 or 4 horizontal width and linearity controls. Whereas on the later TVs, they reduced the number of controls and simplified them. Put the back off here. So the cord seems to be in okay shape. I don't see any cracks in it, but it is pretty stiff. So this will come off. Okay, and that is unfortunate. So this is a very dirty brightener, which means that this TV repair may not actually go very well. Get it out of here. You see that? So this is a brightener. I'll carefully take it off here. And what happens is, as the TV picture tube gets weaker and weaker, the picture gets dimmer, obviously. So this will boost the voltage on the filament in the picture tube and get you just a little bit more extra life out of it. Seeing this in here means that this picture tube is probably pretty much dead. So that's unfortunate. A piece of plastic here. I wonder what that's from. Oh, it must come from up here. Okay. I think that's just plastic. I don't think it's anything important. Probably just like a plastic cover for the inside. This is probably the focus coil. So ion trap magnet here. There used to be a lot of tubes in here though. This is incredibly dusty. There's a lot of dust in here. So we can try and see if we can get a picture, but even if we get a picture, the tube's not going to be good for very long anyway. It might just be worth it just for fun to see if we can get a picture on this thing. So I'm going to probably see if I can get the chassis out and have a better look at it and see where we can go from there. But yeah, if you see one of these in the back of your TV, it's not good news. So I took some bolts out of all 4 corners, and then the chassis just slides out the back. You can see there's a little slot here where these tabs go in. And I should be able to just slide off the front now, so I don't knock everything on the floor. So we can slide this back a little bit. Oops, the speaker is plugged in. Actually looks like it's soldered in. That's unfortunate. So let me unplug the speaker that's around on the other side, inside the cabinet there. Is this little wire here. The stretched kind of tight when I pull back further, so Let me disconnect that and then hopefully we can get this all the way out. Okay, so I got it out of the cabinet here. Let's take a look over everything. You can see our massive power transformer here. Filter capacitors. This is a tuner right here in the front. So our high voltage cage here. Over the top. This is probably going to be our rectifier there. Focus coil. Ion trap magnet. This is our yoke. And these pretty sure you would, to me this isn't focusing, maybe, well it's probably, well, See, these I think are used for centering it. I'm not sure if they usually have those on the focus coil. Usually they have like a separate magnet assembly, I think. I'm not sure, but I think this is probably the focus coil. And these are probably the centering controls. Got some other tubes down here, I'm not sure what all these are. Some more filter capacitors. Probably one of these big ones is the audio output. And probably another one is the vertical oscillator. I'm not too sure about that. Let's see if we can get into a voltage cage without knocking things down. Without knocking my tripod into everything. And there go things flying out anyway. See if we can get in here. Take a look at what's in here. That's supposed to be under tension like that. So that flips up like that. So we've got 3 tubes in here. This is going to be our high voltage rectifier. It's a pretty small tube too. Usually those are the more, like the octal size ones. That's the parts that's that small. This is our horizontal output tube, and that might be the horizontal oscillator. I'm not sure about that. We've got a fuse in there. That's interesting. There's actually a fuse down here as well. I think usually these old sets don't have fuses in them. Let's see if the fuse is any good. It looks good. I'll focus on that. Fuse looks good. Have to check that fuse and make sure that one's good. So I think for right now, I'm just going to familiarize myself with this. You can see there's a tag up here. There's I think it's a tag. Pretty dust covered, whatever it is. Yeah, it looks like maybe it's a tube chart. I'm going to look over this. Maybe I'll flip it up on its side again to look underneath. Pretty sure no work has been done to this in quite a long time, so I'm not even sure if we're going to be able to get it to work with the brightener and everything, so we'll see. So I think the first thing I'm going to do here is plug this in and turn it on and just see if we get high voltage. So that'll tell us if the horizontal oscillator is running or not. And if we have high voltage, then we should get something on the screen, assuming the screen is strong enough to produce anything. So the set is off now. I'm going to plug it in here. Then I'm going to turn it on and see what happens. I did check that fuse, it looks to be good. So this is probably a fuse for the horizontal oscillator. So if the oscillator isn't running, this fuse will blow and won't burn the tube up. Or it might just be to protect the flyback. I'm not 100% sure on that. Let's turn this on. See if we get any tubes going. Pretty bright. Oh, the tubes are glowing. Tubes are glowing. I hear it running. I'm not getting anything off there though. Sounds like it's running though. Oop, there we go. And that seems kind of low-ish, I guess, but then again, this is a small tube, this is an early 50s set, so not seeing anything on the screen though. This one's pretty dirty. Okay, it's super faint. I'm not sure if you can see, but you can kind of see some traces going through. Obviously not going to turn anything in, but so there is some signs of life from the screen. brightness control all the way one way. Did that make it any difference? No, I don't think so. So brightness seems to be having no effect. So that could mean that either the control is bad, or the brightener is somehow messing with it. I wouldn't think so, because the brightener usually just boosts the filament voltage, so it shouldn't affect any of the other control wires, but as the button is controlled, but it doesn't seem to be having any effect. So it could be the CRT is just that dead. I can try hooking a signal up to this and just see if anything happens. I mean, should be able, well, we can see if it'll receive, I guess, if we're able to make out the image. So I'm not sure why the brightness isn't doing anything, but like I said, it could just be because the CRT is so weak. So let me get hooked up to put a signal into this and just see if we can make out any images on the screen. So this at least means that the vertical is working, because you can see it full deflection. It has some traces at the top and some traces at the bottom. So the vertical oscillator is running, and the horizontal is working because we obviously have high voltage. So good signs so far, aside from the dead CRT. So I did manage to finally get some volume out of this thing. I think before my hookup was just bad, the end of my cable was coming off, so I just have it attached now with some clip leads. And there's a lot of noise in it, but you can hear that there is audio coming in. However, the contrast control has no effect. See, the screen doesn't change at all as I turn this contrast control. The brightness does have a little bit of an effect now. And this is with the brightness all the way up. You can kind of see a little bit brighter than it was before, but there's definitely some retrace lines here or something. So I'm still debating whether or not this is worth starting to change parts on, because even if I do get a picture on the screen, it's really not going to be watchable for anything. So at this point, this is just a fun project for me. I'm not sure if I want to put new parts in this or not. I also did notice something interesting. Apparently there's some kind of either a low power channel or a radio station on channel 6. I'm on 3 now. Go to channel 6. Something does come in there. And it's right in the middle of the fine tuning too. So that kind of makes me think that it is an actual TV station. Because if it was a radio station, I'd expect it to be like at one end of the fine tuning, right at the bottom of the radio band. Because channel 6 is right underneath the FM band. So if this was an FM station, I would expect to have to turn the fine tuning all the way towards channel 7 in order to get close to the bottom of the FM band. But this is right in the middle of the fine tuning travel. So of course it could be that the fine tuning is out of line too, but obviously we're not getting any picture. So I'm suspicious that perhaps there is either the contrast control is open, or there's some kind of signal break around there, because the brightness control doesn't usually control the actual video. That just grounds the cathode of the CRT. But the contrast control has, now I just turn the volume up, the contrast control has no effect at all. So that combined with no picture, I just think that our video signal may be lost. Maybe the contrast control is open, or maybe there's a signal lost somewhere after the contrast control or something. I have no idea how to find a schematic for this, because I can't even seem to find a model number on it. When I looked up Hoffman Easy Vision, there only one other picture of this TV came up, and there was really no information about it. So I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go from here. I might just flip it over and have a look and see if anything looks obviously off, but not quite sure what we're going to do with this one. So I've noticed some curiosities with this. You see I've got it up on its side now, and there was a plate on the bottom I took off. So if I measure directly across the filament pins here, can see we're not getting the 6 volts that we should be getting, despite having the brightener on. Now, I was checking this earlier, this was a little bit higher than that, so I'm not quite sure what exactly is going on here. It's kind of all over the place too. So that's measuring right across the filament pins on the CRT. Now the brightener, normally these CRTs run at like 6 volts. The brightener should bring that up to somewhere, 7 or 8 or something to give that little extra voltage. Now if I measure across the CRT filament connections inside the chassis, which is what the CRT would be getting without the brightener, so that says 6.5 volts. So that's inside. So that's what the CRT should be getting, is 6.5 volts. When I actually go to measure the CRT, you can see it's not getting that. So I'm almost tempted, kind of, to just take this brightener off and see what happens then, since this is certainly weird. Another interesting thing that I noticed is that if I measure in DC mode from the CRT filament connection to ground, you can see the CRT filament is at 239 volts, which is certainly interesting. Not quite sure why that would be the case. I wonder if I should disconnect the brightener and just have the socket loose and see if that makes any difference. Okay, so I took the brightener off, measured the voltage, and it was 6 volts, but the tube was super dim. So I put the brightener back on and checked it again, and now it's reading 8 volts. So I'm not quite sure what happened the first time, but this is what I'd expect to see out of the brightener. So I then went on to doing some looking in here, and so this is our IF strip right here, these tubes and coils and everything. And this tube right here is either the video detector or video amp or output tube, or this is where the video comes off of to go up to the CRT. You can't really see it, but this yellow wire, you can kind of see it there, snaking through, snakes up to the other end of this capacitor, which is coupled to some chokes here, and then is taken off of that tube. So I took the tube out and cleaned the tube socket, popped it back in, and you can see our white wire there goes over to the contrast control. So now if we go to the front of it, so over here on the front now, you can see that our contrast control now has an effect. So I think that just that tube socket was dirty. Now I'm sure that all this waviness here is caused by bad capacitors. So I'm not sure if it'll get a picture like this or not. I am tempted though to set it back up on its side. Well, it's on its side now. Set it back up on its bottom and try hooking up and see if we can get a picture or not, or if we have to replace some capacitors first. You can see it looks like a burn-in mark here. I'm not quite sure how that would happen. Usually this is what you get when you don't have an ion trap on it. Before they had before they had ion traps, the positive ions would hit the front of the screen here and burn in. But this tube does have an ion trap, so it shouldn't get this ion burn. So I'm not quite sure what that's from. I mean, you can see it's, the pictures all, it's not even a picture, the raster's all over the place because of the bad capacitors. So, I mean, we can try and see if we got a picture. How about that? We do have a picture. It's an absolutely terrible picture, but it is a picture nonetheless. There's also a lot of noise in the audio too. Not sure if that's just because the discriminator is out of alignment or what, but it's kind of cool. I'm sure this would be improved a lot if I changed the capacitors, obviously, the horizontal and vertical circuit, but still pretty cool. Like I said, I'm still deciding whether I want to do that or not. I might just for fun to see how good we can get it. The only downside kind of is while playing with these controls, they're all the way around the back side of the chassis, and the horizontal hold control is right next to the high voltage cage. So it's kind of nerve-wracking fiddling with the control while you're looking around the front to look at the screen. You know, want to make sure you don't bump into anything. I hope YouTube Content ID won't be able to recognize this. I can barely recognize it. I wonder if anybody in the audience can recognize it. So I just think that's kind of cool, and we were able to get a picture on it that way. And looks like the picture's going away now, but we did have a picture on it. Oh, there it comes back now. We'll probably play with these controls a little bit more. I'm going to turn the light on so I can see what I'm reaching around to grab. I'll turn the light back off so I can see the screen as I... Oh, wait. Hey, there we go. Looks like focus might need an adjustment. Of course, what it really needs is a new CRT, but there's no way that's going to happen. See all the tubes going. And it's kind of cool on these old style CRTs, you can actually see the image from the back side. This is the DAG on the inside. If you look in between it, you can actually see the back side of the screen. I always thought that was kind of cool. Apparently, like the really early Dumont picture tubes, they had no DAG at all on the inside, so like the whole entire tube was clear, except for like one ring around the top for the high voltage pickup. So you could like basically watch the entire movie through the back of the CRT. I think that's kind of cool. Just wanted to show that I cleaned this up a little bit. It wasn't necessary, it's just to make me feel good. You can see that the chassis looks pretty good. There's hardly any rust. There's a little tiny bit right here, and there's a little tiny bit on these things, just some surface rust. But overall, not bad. So I don't think I really discussed in the previous part of this video how I determined that this tube might be the problem. So remember when we first powered this up, we adjusted the contrast control, which is up here, which you can't see. The contrast control is up here, and you remember we adjusted that and got absolutely no effect on the screen at all. Now that control, you can see, comes down and goes right into this tube. Now usually, the way that the contrast control works is it will vary the gain or have some sort of input into the video amplifier. I'm not 100% sure of this, but I believe that the video signal that comes in is inverted. So basically when you have no signal, that's a white screen, and when you have some signal, that is like a dark spot on the screen. So by adjusting the video amp, when you turn the contrast all the way down, that basically kills the video amp and you just get a white screen. When you turn the contrast all the way up, that enhances the gain of the video amp, and then you get a wide variation between dark and light areas of the screen. So the fact that this comes in here also tells me, well, what I should say is the fact that this tube is here kind of lends some clues to its purpose. So this is our IF strip, and you can tell that because usually it's all tubes right in a row with coils in between them, which is what we have here, adjustable coils. That's our IF strip. And then this, I assumed, is the video detector or video amplifier. And the reason I assumed that is because the contrast control comes over into it. Now, if this had been another IF tube, the contrast control probably would not have come into it because usually the IF is for both video and sound, and you don't need your contrast control to adjust your volume. Now, in this particular TV, we can see this cable here picks off of this tube and runs all the way up to here, and this kind of looks like a mini IF strip. This is going to be the sound IF strip. So it actually picks the sound off of here and feeds it up into here. And this is going to be what amplifies the sound, and then you're going to have a sound detector at the end, but that's not important for right now. So this is our video signal comes up to here, and then from here it's actually our whole signal comes up through here, and then past this point it's video only, and this is where the contrast control feeds in to adjust the video gain. Now another clue is, you can't really see it, but this little yellow wire here, there's a little yellow wire that comes out of a hole in the chassis, and that little yellow wire goes up to the back of the tube socket. That's this yellow wire right here. And that is, I assume, the video input to the CRT. And that comes to the other side of this capacitor, which then goes over here, and then couples into that tube through some of these coils and this little tune coil here. So that tells me that this is probably the video detector and video amp, because you wouldn't have the video detector over here because this is a coil here, so it still has to be RF frequency to get through this coil to be detected on this side. So that tells me that this is a video detector and video amp. So our IF signal comes in here, gets detected, amplified, and then sent out to the CRT. So basically all that is in between this contrast adjustment and the CRT is this one tube. Now what I did was I put my meter on this pin where the contrast control feeds in, and I had 0 volts there. Then what I did was I put my meter on just the pin that comes in, and I had, I think, like 2 volts there or something. So all I did was then I just cleaned the tube socket and everything worked. So that just goes through my process of how I'm trying to figure out what all of this stuff is, since I don't have a schematic or anything for this TV. You just kind of have to watch where the signal's going and everything. And it also helps to have some background knowledge of how these TVs work and stuff, like to know that they have an IF, and usually some of these older ones have a separate sound IF and stuff like that. A lot of the TVs usually have, one video detector and then another video amplifier, but this one just has one tube for both of those functions. As far as some of the other functionalities, I believe this tube up here is the sync separator. So that's going to take signal from this video tube and then just pull out the vertical and horizontal sync pulses and then send those off to the oscillators. So I've replaced most of the capacitors in here. Well, the Black Beauties anyway. I did not replace, can you see that? I did not replace this one, or that one, because they're all 0.047s, and I ran out of 0.047s. So that's why I didn't replace those. I didn't replace the candle electrolytics on the top, either because, for one thing, if I remember correctly from last time I fired this up, it didn't seem to have any filter hum. So those are hopefully still okay for now. And also because when I looked at them, several of them said that they had 475 volt sections in them, and that's not a common size, and the 475 or 500 volt electrolytics are considerably more expensive than the 450 volt ones that I usually get. And I don't think it's worth putting that kind of money into this with a dead CRT, so I'm going to leave those alone for now. In the incredibly rare event that I would happen to get an extra CRT, then I would go back and change those 3 and the candle electrolytics. This thing, I think this is a capacitor, but it has an unusual marking. So usually the way that these work is the first 3 bands read like a resistor color code. This would be 4, 7, and then this tells you the multiplier relative to picofarads. So in this case, this would be 10,000. So basically, we've got 47,000 picofarads, which is the same as 0.047 microfarads. And then I think this next band is the tolerance. I'm not sure what colors represent there because I never really pay attention to tolerance. I just get, the 5% or whatever capacitors and replace that with everything. I'm pretty sure none of these are any better tolerance than that anyway. Usually these are like 20% or more. And then this lower band is usually the voltage. I think if this band doesn't exist, then it's a 200. I think a red band is 400, I think. And I think this blue band is 600, if I remember correctly. If you look at this one, it has a white band here where the tolerance would usually be, and then it has two extra bands, a brown and a black. So I'm not sure if you're supposed to read those as like 1,000 volts or if that means something different entirely. Not quite sure about that. So I left that in there for now because I don't have any this would be a 0.0047. I don't have any of those capacitors that are over 630 volts, so I left that alone for now. So I think I'm going to flip this back over and power it up and make any necessary adjustments, like probably the horizontal and vertical have to be readjusted since we changed a bunch of those capacitors. And I have to adjust the focus too, I think, from last time the focus was out. Kind of surprised by how empty this chassis is. Usually on these old TVs, the whole entire thing is just layer upon layer upon layer of components, but this one has this whole big empty section right up in here, and then even in the area that has components in it, there's only like 2 or 3 layers at most, really. So it's kind of interesting. I think that's all I wanted to point out on here. Actually, there is one more thing on the top here. Oops. You can see right there we have our date code. I'm not sure if that's supposed to say 1950 or 1951. You can see there's kind of like a smudge here. So I'm not sure if that's supposed to be like a 0 there, or if there's just a 1 and then there's just a little smudge there, but there's your date code. So I'm going to go with 1950. So it looks closer to that than 1951. You can see these wires running here. Those run up to the little lamp that's underneath the, not underneath, behind the lighted channel dial, but of course that's burned out. And I don't think I happen to have a replacement bulb for that, so that's not going to work, unfortunately. For now, anyway. Just wanted to show that this is a Dumont CRT. Oops. As you can see right there, it says Dumont, and then I think it's a 14, either FP or DP4. It's definitely a 14. It's kind of rubbed off there, unfortunately, but I'm not sure that's an E or an F and then P4, which is interesting because I think the inside the cabinet it says the picture tube is either a 14 BP4 or a 16 something. So you can see there's a tube chart, and picture tube is a 16 TP4 or 14 BP4. But what's in there definitely doesn't look like it's a BP4. It looks like either an F or an E, unless it's just one off that looks like an F or an E. But so I'm not sure. I also don't know if DuPont was Hoffman's original supplier. There are a couple of Dumont tubes in this set, but there are also a variety of other ones. There's RCA, Sylvania, Zenith. I think there's a couple Hytron ones. So it's definitely a high-hour set. I'm not sure if any of those tubes are original or if they're all replaced. And also not sure whether this is the original CR2. Now this might already be its second CRT, and now this one is dead too. But like I said, I'm not sure what Hoffman's original supplier was, so it's hard to tell which one's original and which one's not. So I think the picture here is looking pretty good now. The alignment isn't 100% perfect. If I adjust the tuning here a little bit, fine tuning, well, guess it's okay. It's not, I'm not sure what that buzz is. And right there it seems to have okay sound and okay picture. The picture's not super clear, but again, that could be, alignment or, fact that the CRT is going weak. Actually, you kind of see that there's kind of like lines going through it that show up on the camera. Kind of. You can see there's almost like diagonal lines. So I'm not sure if that's some sort of interference or what exactly that is. Better turn the volume down. I'm not sure if YouTube will content ID this or not. It's probably still on copyright. I'm sure it's still on copyright. But anyway, I think I'm going to be pretty well satisfied with that. It's definitely watchable though. Of course, my camera is blanking some of the time, but it's definitely watchable even with the window open. The sun's not shining in right now. It's getting dark out, but still, it's almost 5:30, I guess. So the sun is, not shining directly in, but it's still up, and it's still watchable. You can sit here and watch that, no problem. And the sound's not terrible either. It does have that annoying buzz though, but maybe an alignment would take care of that, or maybe that's just, the way it's interacting with how the video is processed off the DVD. I'm not exactly sure. Usually that buzz is from, not complete separation of the audio and video signal. But I think I'm going to be satisfied with this. I'm going to clean up the cabinet a little bit and put it back in and probably do one more demonstration. But I think that's going to be pretty much it for now. Saw that we replaced some of the capacitors, even though it did work before that. But okay, so we got this all back together here. I looked at the bulb that's supposed to be the backlight behind the dial light here, and it had an open filament, so I just tapped a little bit and it flashed back to life, so we'll see if that holds up. I've got my DVD player hooked up and playing, so let's turn off the lights and give this a final test. You can see our dial light is working. I guess you can't really read in the camera on channel 3. The tuning might be a little bit off, so I'm going to bump the knobs when I was putting them back on. That doesn't sound very nice. I'll just go back around the back and adjust the horizontal vertical here a little bit. There we go. That looks better. So maybe those got bumped a little bit when I was putting it back in the cabinet or something. It definitely looks a lot brighter in the camera than it actually is in person, but doesn't look too bad though, really. One thing I did want to mention is that I'm not sure if you noticed it or not, but when I cleaned off the when I cleaned off the CRT, there was no aquadag on it at all. Just the bare glass on the outside, which is kind of interesting because usually they have the CRTs coated in the aquadag, which is a conductive coating, and that acts as sort of like a capacitor to filter the high voltage. Now this TV does have a doorknob capacitor, so maybe they just felt like let me adjust these a little bit more. What I was saying was maybe they felt that on the 14-inch CRT they didn't need the extra filtering of the aquadag because they had the drawn capacitor. I'm not really sure about that. I've never seen that before where they just have the bare glass. I hope that somebody didn't think it was dirty and clean it off, but see, there was a little bit of ghosting. You can kind of see like some stripes across it. Not sure how well that's showing up. I think it definitely looks, as far as clearness, it is clear, but like you see like the creases in the clothes are kind of like highlighted, and there's a little bit of ripple here and there. And remember, this is running on the original filter capacitors yet too, so that could be part of the issue. Like I mentioned before, so you can kind of see how there's like like it's brighter on the top of the screen, like above his head. Now again, that could be an artifact of the weak CRT. So you can see it again, there's like a line that goes across where it's brighter up here and darker down here. Not quite sure what the cause of that would be. Now, again, it could just be the weak CRT, I'm not sure. But like I said, it definitely is watchable. It's just not super great. See if we still have hum if we turn the volume up. A little bit, but so the only place to go from here is to win the lottery and replace the CRT. And of course, if that happens, I'll obviously replace the remaining capacitors and probably do some more work on trying to fix up the cabinet. But it's incredibly unlikely that that's going to happen, so I think this is going to be about it for this one. Hope you enjoyed this little look at getting this TV working. You know, it's not too bad, really. Just that you have to watch it in the dark, basically. And of course, it's not going to last very long because of that brightener is probably going to cook the CRT even faster since it's running it at 8 volts. So who knows how many hours you can actually watch a CRT like this on a brightener. But it's going to be significantly, and what I'm trying to say is the brightener is going to degrade the CRT a lot faster than just the normal use of the CRT because it's running the filament at a much higher voltage, which is going to degrade it faster. Anyway, I hope you like this look at getting this old TV working half decent. Thank you for watching.